So there were some parts of that round that just sucked. Matt Kennedy owners, Nick Martin owners, Connor Rozee, Tristan Cherry owners know exactly what I'm talking about. But there were some brilliant moments in there as well. But we need to move real quickly away from looking in the rear vision mirror and start focusing ahead on a brand new round. The thing is, in AFL Fantasy, based on the ownership percentage, coaches are going to have one, if not two, forced trades this week. So on this week's trade target, I'm going to help you navigate your way through the at least one forced trade that you have to make to be able to get your side into either A, prime spots for league finals, which are really close, or for the dash to the last 6 weeks of the 2025 season. Let's go. My number one trade target this week. It is basically a sideways trade from Nick Martin, and it's the guy that I think's got a great role and a great fixture to run home. My top trade target this week, Jack Macrae. His last four, he's coming off a 90, a 123, an 89, and a 104. This matchup against the Cats looks super delicious for a couple of reasons. One, we got a great reminder last week that if opposition teams are going to squeeze on any St Kilda midfielder or any St Kilda player, period, it's going to start with Nasiah Wanganeen-Mellera and Jack Sinclair before it gets anywhere near Jackson Macrae. The last time he played Geelong as a Saint, he dished up in round 2 this year 152 AFL fantasy points. Now, the Cats matchup isn't as dreamboat run as it might have been at various junctions of the year, but it's still a pretty outstanding spot to be in, especially when you consider in their final 5 weeks after this Cats matchup, they've got North, they've got Melbourne, they've got Essendon. Like, those 3 teams, really outside of West Coast and Richmond, are some of the best inside midfield matchups running around. So to get a guy that is basically a parachute jump over sideways maneuver from Nick Martin, gosh, even if you've got a Luke Jackson, you can flip him into the ruck and move Cherry, who I am convinced is going to get, at time of recording, a decent suspension. It's just a really simple, easy, no cash exchanging hands move, and the fixture is awesome. So to me, I'm absolutely all locked in on this move. It is my number one trade target this week. Who's my number 2? Jason Horne-Francis. He's coming off a 112 against the Eagles, and really he did that in 3 quarters of the game because he was nowhere to be seen in the first quarter of this game. He's got the Hawks this week, which isn't a great matchup, but he did score a ton on them earlier this year. What I like about Jason is this average of 82 is not reflective of what he really is. Look at the middle portion of the year. We know he's a truer 90s performer. And what I like about this play is him at his price point. Because if he's at 900K, I'm probably not suggesting it. Because, again, look at the last couple of weeks, taking out the sub or the injury impacted games. There's 80s, it's 70s. There's the odd nice ton. It's fine. But when you're paying 900K for an 89, 90, it's like, maybe not. But you're paying under 750,000. You're basically making 200,000 via Nick Martin or Tristan Cherry and getting Jason Horne-Francis. And that extra 200,000, man, you can reapply that to almost any other spot you want and really go and get the player you want. It's a great move if you've got the double pain point of Martin and you've got Cherry. Maybe you've got a Connor Rozee that's sitting through there as well, who's at least got a question mark on his health. Well, all of a sudden it's 200K to the Hornet, and that 200K can go up and get any of those other guys to the player that you want. It can get you your Golden. It can get you your Grundy. It can get you your Gawn. It can get you you can get anyone you like, probably with that cash. So that's why I like it. A good player with good scoring history and consistency this year and a nice cheap price point. I'm happy to put the Hornet as my number 2 trade target. History would say it's never great to pay at the top price for someone. And for the most part, I agree. But his history over the last, 8 to 10 weeks has been outstanding. And with X needing to get moved on or coaches wanting to get into the big thing that's popping at the moment, how could I not put him in the trade targets? My number 3 trade target this week is Brody Grundy. His last 5 games, he's averaging 127. He hasn't gone under 110 since round 8 and nothing under 120 since round 10. We're heading into rounds way deeper than that. And if Cherry does miss, which again, at time of recording, not been confirmed, but being highly suspected that it's coming, he's rucking against Bryn Teakle. And this was meant to be the tough matchup of the Sydney Swans run home from a ruck DVP perspective. Bryn Teakle is no Tristan Cherry. He's no scrub, but he's not Tristan Cherry. And Grundy is taking everybody out at the moment that's stopping him. So that's the tough matchup. But then of the remaining matchups to come, so the 5 games after that, he's got 4 of the 6 easiest ruck matchups. This is a scary proposition. Yeah, 1.1, nearly $1.2 million is not cheap. He's got a break even of 120. So you're paying for him and he has to go 120 plus from now to the end of the year. But on form, unmatched in the comp, let alone in the ruck line. Based on these coming games, there's like one tough matchup, and that's the Lions. Other than that, this is as easy as it could get, with the exception of the West Coast Eagles. This is a scary junction for coaches to be, because if you fade and he keeps doing what he's done, like nothing under 120 since round 10, you're losing 10, 20 points most matchups in this one spot. And it hurts. However, if you're paying basically $1.2 million for a guy, and others can find someone 200, 250, 300,000 cheaper that can be within just 10 points of him. I'm not saying to match him, but just to be within 10 of him, which there are some matchups this week that could do it. It's crazy, but Briggs could do it. Told you it was crazy. He's not in the 10, but it's crazy. That's when it starts to hurt. Oh boy. Going for a $1.2 million guy never feels great, but form is great. Fixture is good. This is season-defining moves right here, but everything screams, go and get yourself some Brody Grundy. So he sits at the number 3 spot for me. In at number 4, let's diverge away from what might be the more urgent issues. Again, let's wait and see what happens with Connor Rosie with that scan. But my number 4 trade target this week is Locky Whitfield. He's basically at a basement price now, just over that $920,000 price point. But there was a point in time during this season, you were paying $1.16 million for him. He was the absolute knockout defensive premium pick. And he's in a really interesting spot because coaches could choose a number of ways to get into him. 1, if Rosie's missing, bang, make some money and off you go. 2, maybe you've got some dual position links with an injured Martin or a suspended Cherry. And that's my premise. I don't want to have to say it again, that he does cop weeks. You can move around and get into X and make some money, albeit not as much as a month ago, but still make some money. Or maybe you're in a luxury position. You don't have injuries and suspensions to cover this week, or only one of them, and you can make other moves. Man, you want to jump off of a Callum Mills type as your D6? Well, it's not too far from a Locky Whitfield now to be able to make that jump. He's got a great matchup this week against Essendon, which on paper doesn't feel awesome, but this Essendon team keep losing soldiers week in, week out. Martin, now Setterfield's in trouble. Yes, this is midfielders and ball movement options and clearance players. I understand that. But there's just no one that can run the tag. There's just no one that can stop. I feel like the Giants have been in nice form of late. They could absolutely go full bully ball here. And it wouldn't shock me if Locky Whitfield got involved in that as well. Essendon's ball movement is really stagnant and high turnover. It wasn't a great game to watch on Saturday night, but Locky Whitfield, to me, it just is unbelievable value. And I think you could trade into him now if you wanted to. Then my number 5 trade target to wrap out the top 5, Max Gawn. Now, form would not be a great indicator. He's gone 89, 89, 88 since coming off the bye. Not great. But why has that been? Well, over those 3 games, he's played the Crows, he's played North, and he's played the Suns. Those 3 teams are 3 of the 4 hardest rucks to score against in 2025 in O'Brien, Cherry, and Witts. And so, in a run of horrible matchups, he's still dishing you up something that is more than respectable. He's not giving you the 50s, the 60s, gosh, even the 70s that some of our premium midfielders have dished up, or premium forwards, Matt Kennedy, or premium defenders, Bailey Dale, have dished up for us. He's giving us high 80s in horrid matchups. And before these 3 games, 3 terrible games of 88 as the lowest. He had 10 straight tons. Now let's look at the next few games. Carlton this week, 5th hardest based on the last 5 games of data. Pitnet and TDK double teaming, not great. I get that. But again, if you're needing to get somewhere affordable, trying to save about 100,000 off Brody Grundy, maybe you need that extra 100K. Gawn's just as good, because after this one, then he's got the Saints, which is the easiest ruck matchup in the game. And then after that, they've got the Eagles, which is the second easiest ruck matchup in the game. And so even if you get another one of these high 80s disasters, yes, I'm being very tongue-in-cheek now, he's got the best 2 ruck matchups where he could absolutely feast in both of those games. So to get him at basically 100K cheaper than Grundy, I don't mind it. It's also probably the one ruck you wish you'd had at various points in the year, and X-Man gives you the pathway in. So that's my top 5. It's McCrae, it's Horne-Francis, it's Grundy, it's Whitfield, and then it's Gawn. Let's start finding you some separation, either because of the price point, something unique, or something fun, whichever you're going for. Let's go for something fun, shall we? Let's talk about a player that's coming off the back of consecutive 130-plus scores, and he's got 3 120-plus scores in his last 5, and he's got a pretty favourable matchup this week. My number 6 trade target, Lloyd Meek. What has happened to me? I never thought I'd put Meek in one of these trade target episodes, and he's not cheap. Like, he's knocking on the door of $1 million himself. But again, if you're trying to do this 2 forced trade maneuvers this week, and again, just using Martin and Cherry based on ownership as probably the more popular duo than anything else, and the most certain combination when they don't know what's happening with Rosie. You've got to almost do a combo platter if you don't have much cash in the bank to make it a maneuvering. Somewhere you've got to take 100K off for 200K off here to do that. And Meek's in as good a form as anyone over the last couple of weeks. And in fact, outside of that Riley O'Brien game in the last 5, who again is one of the more restrictive rucks in the game. Context matters, not just the scoring. How they get to the score matters. He's been great. Yeah, it's not cheap. But he's got Port this week, who, based on the last 10 games of data, favourable. Last 5, not as easy to score against, but Meek's showing he can get it done. There's some good matchups to come for the rest of the year. Hawthorn aren't a certainty for finals. They're going to push hard and deep. UTAS is where they're playing this week. I just like it as a unique play, because if you're going, man, I need someone that's got ceiling, Meek has got that. I need to create some separation when everyone's zigging, I'm going to zag. Meek does that. And it's got at least a historical paper of a guy or a matchup that has been very good for us this year. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Lloyd Meek, you're in at number 6. Let me give you my number 7 trade target. Heavy on the rucks for you this one, but I promise you this is my last one. Timmy English is my number 7 trade target. Maybe you already own Grundy and you're looking for a way to get off X and you want to create some uniqueness, because look, the price between him and Grundy is not much, okay? It's enough, but maybe you want to create some separation, like in the top 100, 15% of coaches own Gawn, whereas opposed to 13% own Tim. Okay, that's promising. He's got an average of 114 in his last 5, and in his last 16 games, he's had 5 scores 120 plus and just the 1 score under 90, so not really hurting you. The Lions this week is slightly red. It's not the worst matchup for rucks. It's not amazing. But then he's got GWS and Essendon out of that, which is 2 of the top 5 easiest rucks to score against. So much like others this week, Gawn is another one of that kind of $1 something million rucks. It's not easy. It's not amazing. but then there's enough juice that comes after it that might be really possible. So again, maybe you're a Grundy and an X. You already got Grundy, so you're like, who cares? He's number 3, MJ. What else do I go? Look, I got Gawn slightly ahead of Tim and mainly Price, but the fixtures are pretty decent for both. So I'm happy to roll in there. And again, maybe you're just looking for that uniqueness. 11% overall as opposed to 30% overall. 15% in the top 100 as opposed to 13%. These little markers can make all the difference. So I don't mind that one as a play. He's been even better than I think people want to give him credit for this year. Then my final 3 trades of the round for my trade targets. Errol Golden. A lot of people jumped on him last week and be a little underwhelmed with an 89, but I think we should actually be relatively happy with that. And the reason I say that is the Saints over the last 5 games for midfielders have been top 3 most restrictive to score against. And so for him to be able to do that in a game that got some Windhager attention on the outside, didn't really get that Sydney ball movement going. It was a high pressure game. It didn't get those kind of uncontested marks and create the way we know Golden can. Yeah. So he's not cheap, but getting into a player of Golden now, I actually really like, because this Swans midfield have a dream run. Before I even talk about their opponent this week, in round 21, so the start of your league finals or the start of the last month of the year, they've got Essendon. Outstanding. And then in round 24, where it is all on the table and potentially for Sydney, the percentage, let alone the victory, might be the difference between finals or not. They got the West Coast Eagles, one of the easiest teams to score against in fantasy this year. It's not bad, hey? How about this? They've got North Melbourne this week. Okay. Will Phillips might run with him, if not with Heaney, if not with Warner. Well, how did he go against them last time? 151? Yeah. Not owning Errol at some point this year is going to hurt you at some point over these last couple of weeks of the year. If you're on him, and a decent percentage, he jumped up 5% ownership over the round just gone. Decent. But wow, not cheap, but everything screams this run home looks really, really good. Now, if money's a little tight for you, let's go towards the low 900s, shall we? Let's stay in the midfield and let's give you a couple of qualifiers. You're looking for someone cheap. I got you. Now, cheap being under 950,000, by the way, not heading into the 700K territories of Mordor. We do not want to do that to your fantasy team. Someone that's unique, okay, 3% owned overall. We got you. And someone that has a history of ceiling, okay. He's just come off the back of a 130 plus score last week. My number 9 trade target, there's a particular Patreon that's going to be pretty happy about this one. You know who you are. Tim Taranto is my number 9 trade target. They've got the West Coast Eagles this week, one of the easiest teams to score against. They are the second easiest team after Richmond and the best midfield DVP opposition right now. He's already played him once this year and dished up a 94, which was a pretty underwhelming game for him. But he's been really gearing over the last couple of weeks. And it's not just this. In the next month to come, they've got the Suns and they've got North, who in the last 10 games are the number 1 and the number 2 easiest teams for inside mids to score. So 3 great matchups over this next month and a bit. He's unique. He's got ceiling and he's on the cheaper end, like 100,000 cheaper than Errol, way cheaper than if you're looking to get DeBont and Dawson. And maybe it's for leagues or rankings. You're like, I need some separation. Tim gives you that, and he's got the fixture. Maybe you're just balancing with all these injured and suspended top-end guys. You're like, I just need to skimp somewhere. Tim's going to be close enough to the top-end guys. I wouldn't be shocked based off this fixture. And so I'm happy to put him in there as a bit of a unique ceiling cheap option that might just be able to get you there with a pretty decent fixture to boot. And then the last guy I've got in my top 10, certainly not in the top 5, but I think he deserves to be in the spot. Zak Butters. He's coming up off a 125 last week. That was trending towards a 150 at various points of the game, but certainly slowed as the match went on. Hawks this week aren't awesome on paper, but his personal history against him is actually quite good. And that's the thing about Zak. And there are certain players in the AFL that do this, where DVP always matters, and history of a player matters, of what they've been able to do and to restrict and to stop. But then there are just certain players that you go, yeah, but they can break the trend. A great example was Marcus Bontempelli last week against the Adelaide Crows. Really hard to score against for inside mids. Bont, I got you. And away they go. So back to Zak on the point. They've got Hawthorn this week. His last three against them is a 105, a 112, and a 129. So he's got a really nice history of scoring against them. And since the bye, 4 tons and just the one score under 97. So he's not hurt you. Again, he's not cheap. He's not low 900s where he was a month ago. He's now up at the high 900s. But he's the type of player that thrives on these tough sort of moments. And the fixture's not amazing. I'm just putting out there like the Crows next week. So I'm not giving you a guy that fixture-wise, DVP-wise, I'm saying get on. But what I am going is, if ever there was a player that could run a 105 to 110 average through a difficult fixture, if I was building a list of premium mids that can do it, Zak's probably in my first 5 picked. And again, the Gold Coast Suns for inside mids has been a favourable matchup for us. And that's who Port have at the final round of the year. I know that feels like such a long way away for us at the moment, but I think it's still worth looking and considering. And so that are my top 10 trade targets for this week. Who are you trading into this week? Comment below and let me know in AFL Fantasy, what are the 2 trades you are making? The deal I have with you is if I name one of the players you're trading into, you must like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so. It's a small little thing, I know, but it makes a huge impact for us. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in, for commenting, and for getting involved on the channel. We'll be back tomorrow night on a Tuesday evening with our strategy session. And then if you play Supercoach, we'll do our Supercoach trade targets on a Wednesday night. Thanks for tuning in. We can't wait to be talking with you again soon.